Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
I think out of every protest we've seen.
I do. No, I've still got the nat mic on. I'll turn it off whenever we bring Jake in, but as long as you can hear me okay. Test. Powering, yeah. Yeah, as long as you can hear me okay, we're good. And I'll turn it off later. All right. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Not so conspicuous as that. How close was that?
That was beautiful.
Now with the wind.
Was it winning? Yeah. Not enough English.
Check out that balcony spot. You got the phone up there. It was really nice. Question: do you think you and Hank is Hank?
Crew downtown says some people are actually outside dining at this. Okay, this is an Eyewitness News special report. This is Main Street, downtown.
need to get my check.
freedoms in it. Mic check 1 2. Hello, hello, hello. Mic check 1 2. How does this shot look? I'm gonna start here, talk about the medic tent, and then I guess I'll point down there because honestly I have no idea what's going on, so I'm about to wing this entire thing. So.
Check on it. Sorry, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Down here needs to be on IFB.
No. All right, mic check.
Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4. Hey everybody, trying to hook up to an IFB. I've got 2 that are busy.
Yeah, are you on an IFB line yet?
Nope, they're both. 827-0561 is busy. 831-2116 is busy. The other one just keeps ringing and ringing. 8978.
Why?
I talked them out of it, actually. They're not happy with... They feel that we took the EPD's stance as official, despite footage showing the contrary to what they were saying.
This is an Eyewitness News special report, the Evansville Protests. This is Main Street in downtown Evansville. Relatively quiet now. Some businesses have closed, but some restaurants, we are told, are open, and some people are actually dining outside. It could be the quiet before the storm. Law enforcement is on high alert tonight. This is a gathering of people at the Four Freedoms Monument on the riverfront, about 7 blocks away from the Civic Center. Thank you for joining us tonight on this hot June night. Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Bird. The name of the protest is called I Can't Breathe, Protest Police Brutality. Evansville police earlier this week said that they had received credible threats that had been discovered in Evansville, targeting police, the East Side Evansville Walmart, and the East Side Target. On a Facebook page promoting the protest, a woman who's using the name Ursula Carriosa has told Eyewitness News she is an organizer. Now, earlier this week, there were also rumors and posts on social media that the extreme left-wing group called Antifa may have a presence in Evansville tonight. It's a group that has been involved in other protests, and its mission states its aim is to achieve their political objectives through the use of direct action rather than through police reform. We are now going to try to get contact with Evansville Police Chief Billy Bolin, and Billy is talking to us via Skype right now. Chief, are you there and can you hear me?
Brad, I can't, but you're breaking up pretty good.
Okay, I will try to speak up. We had a good signal earlier. I'm hearing some chants outside right now. I assume that is from the Four Freedoms Monument. Chief Bolin, the first thing I want you to do is go back in time. You've been in law enforcement now 25 years. One of the officers involved in the death of George Floyd, it was his third day on. Okay, I've just been told we've lost Chief Bolin on Skype, but we'll try to get back to him. As I was saying, one of the individuals involved in the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, it was his third day on the job. 3 officers. Okay, we do have Chief Bolin back. Chief, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, Chief, we're going to go back in time, 25 years, as I was saying to our viewers. 25 years, you were a rookie at that time, and one of the officers in Minneapolis involved in the death of George Floyd, he'd been on the job just 3 days. Can you put yourself back in time? How would you have reacted had you been in a situation the likes that we saw in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago on Memorial Day?
You know, I think it would have been really tough as a young officer trying to overrule one of the officers with seniority, trying to get them to act differently than they did. So that is definitely a teaching moment. We need to be talking with our troops when they're coming out of the academy is, you know, you got new training. Some of these older guys may have been trained differently. So if you see something that's wrong, you need to step up. And I know from watching that video, and I don't know if it was the young officer in question or not, but one of them was trying to get them to pay attention to Mr. Floyd and try to get him to roll him over. And one of the other ones told him no. So hopefully it wasn't that officer. And if so, I do really feel bad. I didn't know he had only been on 3 days. That would be a tough one for anybody. But
you have said publicly there is absolutely no justification for what happened on that street that night. How has that affected the EPD, though? What are officers saying right now? Because this is a little bit different than past events involving police officer custody, involving deaths of black men or black women. What's your department, the officers that you're in charge of, saying about all this?
Yeah, I hear a lot of anger, a lot of people that are upset, and it's anger at the officers in Minneapolis for putting us all in this position. The whole country is going through this and dealing with the, and I'm not saying anything here is unruly, but the unruly protests, the rioting, the things all over the country because of actions up there. And to a person, I've not met an officer here yet that even remotely tries to defend this. Everybody's upset with it.
And how would you describe police community relations right now in Evansville? This has been obviously a work in progress over many years.
I think they're really good. I think we still have things we have to work on. We obviously have people that are still frustrated. There's been protests almost every day this week, but they've all been peaceful. They've been down on the riverfront. We've not been having complaints or concerns or having to have officers there. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good. I think a large part of the community realizes we're trying to build relationships. We're trying to extend the open hand, and just hopefully we can get more and more people to join with us. And it's not saying that we're always right, but at least to see we're trying to do the things that are right.
We have talked about social media many times, Chief, and some of the speculation in social media. Tonight, we are not speculating here at Eyewitness News. We are just reporting what we see and what's going on in downtown Evansville and throughout the community. But these posts, did they concern you? Because initially, we were reporting that the EPD was confirming that there had been credible threats, but you're backing away from that a little bit now. Why is that?
Well, we're not seeing credible threats. We're just seeing a lot of online chatter. And if so many people keep repeating something, we're concerned that there may be a shred of truth to it somewhere. So we're not saying that, this is true, but we are saying we're paying attention. So as I said in a Facebook post the other day, we're preparing for the worst, but we're hoping for the best. And we don't have a credible threat that there's been buses unloading. We don't have a credible threat that we have a whole lot of Antifa here in town. We know that there's one person with Antifa ties that's here in Evansville. That doesn't mean they're going to be at the protest. That doesn't mean that they're helping organize it. So for us to say that we know Antifa is involved, we don't. And so I think a lot of the stuff is just people are speculating and they're thinking of the worst. We are planning for the worst, but we're not expecting it, if that makes sense.
Is there an element, though, in Evansville, Chief, that in which, I'll just cite this poll from ABC News. Nearly 3/4 of Americans view the death of George Floyd at the hands of a white police officer as a sign of an underlying racial injustice problem. 3 out of 4 people in the most recent ABC News poll. How do you react to that, and how does that apply right here to home?
Yeah, that's one of the most frustrating things for me. Is I've said numerous times, my number one goal coming in the job as police chief was how do we fix the relationships between the black community and law enforcement. I said back then, back in 2012, I thought it was the biggest problem facing our country. And a lot of people would think I'm nuts for saying that, but I think if we look nationwide right now today, I think they would have to admit it's one of the biggest problems we have facing our country. And until we can all come together and figure that out, I don't think it's as easy as so-and-so got shot or so-and-so had an officer on him and he was black and the officer was white. I think there's a lot of outlying factors, social factors, economic factors, and it doesn't boil down as simply as just white and black. And we as law enforcement have to listen, community leaders have to listen, and the community and news media, Brad. We all have to work together. And if we keep jumping on things and saying, it was a race thing, when a lot of these, and including the one in Minneapolis, I don't know that it had anything to do with race. I know it was horrible. I know it was wrong. It may have had something to do with race, but nobody knows that other than the fact that the victim was black.
But national statistics do show, Chief, that black males, the chances of them dying while in police custody or involving a police action, they have almost 2.5 times more of a probability of dying. How do you react to that?
One thing I would point out on that stat is that's true when you're getting within a demographic. If you're going apples for apples, there's about twice as many white people that die in an encounter with a police officer in a given year as there is black people. But black people make up a smaller percentage of the population. So when you start looking at those smaller percentages, that's absolutely true. But one of the most frustrating things in the world to me is when I have close friends that tell me, like, I hope you don't mind I say this, but Steve Brown, he's a local pastor, said to me a few years ago that he's really scared for his grandsons if they have an encounter with law enforcement of what's going to happen with them. Steve is a great man, a personal friend, and he's a friend of law enforcement, but he has a legitimate, honest fear that his grandsons are going to die because he's hearing that statistic. But if you're just going pure statistics, if I'm out of town somewhere and a police officer don't know me, I would have a greater chance of dying than the black man. But when you break it down to that the smaller perspective. I'm getting tongue-tied here, but break the numbers down, it means more. But apples to apples, I've got a bigger chance of that happening to me. And I hate that they're afraid there. I think it's a very real perception, but I don't think the perception is factually based. And there's another stat that as a police officer, I have an 18% bigger chance of being killed at the hands of a black man than a black man has of getting killed by me. There is no part of me that has anything against the black race or fears the black race because of it, but it's a fact. It's a statistical data point, and I think we got to be careful to look at those stats and get hung up on them sometimes.
Okay, I know, Chief Bolin, that this could be a very busy night for the EPD. Would you be available, per se, if things, I know you're going to be very busy, I'll ask anyway, but if you could give us an update on what you are seeing and monitoring as the evening progresses. If there, from a public safety issue, if there's information that we can pass on to our viewers that would help just basically keeping everyone safe. If you could give us
absolutely. Nick Winsett, our public information officer, is here. Phil Smith, who runs social media, is here. And I will be available throughout the night. I may not at any certain time be available, but at some point we can figure out a time for me to get back on. Absolutely.
All right, Chief Billy Bolin, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be keeping in touch, and stay safe tonight.
Thank you.
And we have several crews out tonight monitoring the situation in the Evansville area. And that poll that we cited, which was an eye-opener, the 3 out of 4 Americans view the death of George Floyd at the hands of a white police officer as a sign of an underlying racial injustice problem. One thing that jumped out at me this week was Mayor Lloyd Winnicke publicly said, let's make it clear, and I am quoting the mayor now, E hasn't always been for everyone, and it is not always today, but we are striving for it. And sadly, vestiges from the past still exist today through the years of our community has fought for social justice. The words of Mayor Lloyd Winnicke tonight. So at least a conversation has been started between white America and black America. And I've been told now that Grace Haba is standing by. She is near the protest area along the Four Freedoms Monument. Grace, what can you tell me?
Brad, just a short while ago, this large crowd behind me migrated up here towards the Four Freedoms Monument. I'm going to step out of the frame and give you guys a closer look at what's going on behind me. As you can see, there are well over 100 people, all ages here today, advocating for social justice and social reform. Now, they were starting down towards the pagoda here on Riverside Drive, and actually just a few moments ago made their way up here to the Four Freedoms Monument. There are various leaders from the community here, each speaking on a bullhorn, sharing the message. As you can see, there are many people here clapping along. And again, as I said, this is not just an adult conversation. There are many kids here and people of all ages getting involved in this social conversation. Now, earlier today, we did take a drive down Main Street, and we actually did notice that several businesses have boarded up and are taking the necessary precautions just in case this large group of people does make their way down Main Street or even one of the side streets like Walnut, as they did last weekend. They are prepared just in case something like that does happen. And down closer to the Civic Center, as Chief Bolin just mentioned to you, they are prepping for the worst but hoping for the best. They do have that area around the Civic Center barricaded off just in case, again, this large group that has now formed around the Four Freedoms Monument does eventually make their way downtown. Now, I also want to give you guys a look at what's going on to the right of the Four Freedoms Monument. There is a group of EMTs who are certified in special aid. They actually have a whole group around here where they have waters and some Gatorades and some other things for individuals in the event that they do need them. They're not necessarily a part of this protest at all or taking any sort of side. They say they just want to be here in case any of these protesters have any sort of heat exhaustion symptoms or anything like this, they brought a tent with them to provide some shade and, again, some water, some Gatorades, and some snacks for them just in case they are dehydrated. So, again, Brad, we are bringing you team coverage of this whole protest that is taking place today, and in the event that it does make its way downtown, we will, of course, be there bringing you updates as that occurs.
Grace Habit, thank you so much for your report, and stay safe there. And we noticed Riverside Drive traffic is still moving. There had been some question whether or not it would have to be shut down depending on the size of the crowd and the activities involving that crowd. And obviously, it is an extremely hot June evening in Evansville. I'm going to go over to meteorologist Stacey May. And Stacey, you were telling us yesterday that these heat indices could be very, very high tonight at this time.
Yeah, and Brad, this is the highest combination of heat and humidity and those heat indices that we have felt so far this season. So let's take a look right now at the current conditions that we have in Evansville. 93 degrees our temperature, and it has been as high as 94 this afternoon. And then you look at that dew point. It's not extremely high, but it's above 65, and anytime it goes into the upper 60s, that's when we have that humid air, plus the wind is calm. So we don't have anything moving around that sticky air either. And you can see Evansville is one of the hottest spots across the tri-state, and again, has been as high as 94. It is 94 up in Princeton, but right now 93 in Evansville. But when you factor in that dew point that is in the upper 60s, it feels a few degrees hotter. So right now the feels like temperature in Evansville 96, but again, at times it has been anywhere between 95 and 100 this afternoon. And we do, again, even right now, have some triple-digit heat indices in parts of the tri-state. So we've had that kind of range going for us for several hours now this afternoon. And we're not going to get big relief as we go through tonight. And I'll tell you what, our record high for today is 97. So that kind of puts into perspective how hot plus the humidity that we are dealing with out there today. But it is dry. Live first warning Doppler radar has been clear and quiet all day long. But here's kind of a look at how things are going to shape up as we go through the rest of the evening. We are going to bring in some less humid air for tomorrow, but it's not really going to get in here tonight. So we will just gradually fall through the 80s. So just like last night, it'll stay warm and it'll stay muggy out there. And overnight, we will only drop it down into the low 70s. But right now, we are still above 90 degrees. And Brad, we still feel like we are between 95 and 100 out there.
Okay, thank you very much for the update, Stacey. I'm going to pass a message now on to my producer, Chris Veach, in the control room. I've just received a message, Chris, that Reverend Gerald Arnold is